job seekers don't read instructions very well. If it says to email it to a certain email address and you spam 5 different staffers with your email and your resume and asking about the job, you're not being clever, you're not helping yourself out, you just ignored the directions that are helping this organization hire. You're making it more difficult. So read the instructions and heed the instructions. There's a significant decrease in suitable talent for open roles. People say that all the time, they go, I just can't find anybody. So we are looking for you. This is the thing, but we can only look in certain places. We need to hunt where the ducks are. And where the ducks need to be are on those job banks. That your resume is on conservativejobs.com. You need to make yourself visible and easily seen so we can find you when we're doing a search. There are many open roles in an organization and the people apply for the wrong one. Like I said, all of those different types of jobs that exist within the public policy sphere, you might be applying to the incorrect job. It might be the one that you want to do, but it's not the one that you are suited to do right now. You can learn and then move in more towards that role of what you want to do, but be willing to do the role that suits your abilities. And that's why they say it's the intersection of interests and abilities, because they're both very important. The new administration has created a talent void. In some cases, is that a lot of people moved over and started working in administration. But that just means that there are a lot of job openings in other places that need to be filled. And that is a great opportunity for young conservatives, for people looking to switch careers and move into the public policy sphere. New talent's out there, but we can't find them. We're looking. Again, make yourselves visible. Professionalism still goes a long way. Send us a thank you note and be polite. After a job interview, if you're not putting a handwritten thank you note in the mail, or at the very least a thank you email to the person who you interviewed with, and every single person you interviewed with, you're, again, doing yourself a disservice. Thank you notes are like gold, they're currency. When it comes to people who are hiring, it means so much, and so few people send them that it will make you stand out from other job seekers. And finally, become a familiar face by attending our events. We want to help our friends. That's ultimately what networking is. One of my husband and I's close friend, Chaz Charami, is in the back of the room, and he's a master networker. So if you haven't met Chaz, you guys should. But we talk about, we run our own networking group. It's called The Rules of Networking. And it's on Facebook, you can find it if you search on it. But basically we talk about, we go, we want to help our friends. We don't look at people when we're networking as stepping stones to our next job or our next career move. We're looking to develop relationships with people. Because who are you more likely to help? Someone who has a resume and says, I need a job, or a friend that says, hey, can you help me with something? Who's gonna, you do the resume? No, you're gonna say, I gotta help my friend first. You need to move yourself from just a new face in a resume over into the friend category. It's one of those times where it's when you're just friends, friend zone. Friend zone is good when it comes to networking. You want to make sure, you guys can laugh at this. You're like, tough crowd today.
Tough crowd.
That's all right. But I also want to be very honest with you, is that what's hot right now, fundraising and development jobs, communications roles, digital tech roles, field work, we're gearing up for a very busy 2020 campaign season. Research is hot right now. I think that you need to find every yearbook that ever existed at this point, and you need to find out where that is. But what's not is policy roles. Policy roles are few and far between, true policy roles. But if you want to do policy and affect policy, there are hundreds of other jobs that help the policy move along. You raise money to pay for the salaries. You develop relationships with donors. You develop relationships with journalists. There's just so many different things. You help people find jobs, right? My job is to help people find jobs. How cool is that? You're like, it's so meta. You're like, shut up, we want to hear from the White House guy. This is literally the last slide before we'll get into the Q&A, but the good news is that every single one of you, this is a big assumption, but I think it should be a safe assumption, that you're capable of developing skills necessary to get a new job. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Like I learn new stuff all the time. I go, I cannot believe that I just learned how to do that. My mother learned how to use a VCR and the internet you can learn new skills to get you a new job. Trust me, the fact that she was able to do that is amazing. Simply by being here in this room, the fact that you chose this session out of all of the ones that are happening at 1 o'clock this afternoon on Friday at CPAC means that you're lapping every other person who is not getting a jump start on finding their next job and starting their career. So really, you are doing something extraordinary to help yourself by being in here, so you should be happy about that. We are here to help you, is that we want to be resources. So just get that in your head, that it's not a competition, is that conservatives want to help other conservatives. And we want to make sure that we can help you get the job that you want, that you're interested in. So please use LI, the Leadership Institute, as a resource. Paul, talking to him, he's got great advice. We've been there. We've all had a first job. We've all had our first job in politics. I have gotten laid off from a job in politics. Like, I've been there too, right? We've lost jobs. These things happen, so we've literally been in your shoes. And that's why it's that being empathetic and making sure that you know that we understand where you are. And we believe in you, is that I want to make sure, like, I want you to succeed. I want to help you so much that in 10, 20 years, when no one will hire me, you'll remember that I helped you so I can have a paycheck. Like, these are the things. It's dig your well before you're thirsty. It's a great book on networking if you haven't read it, but that's what it is. You need to plant the seeds now for the future. So we're gonna get into a discussion with Paul, and we're gonna talk about how to jumpstart your career, and I'm very excited about it. Paul has been a friend of the Leadership Institutes for a very long time, because Paul is a great conservative. And we love conservatives at LI. We're in the business of training conservatives. Paul, I think the first question is, for everyone here, is it pretty cool working in the White House?
You know, it's not bad. It's like a calm ocean,
Yeah.
right? It's just like there's nothing exciting going on at the White House at all. No, it's fantastic. It's a tremendous honor. You may say, well, why'd you leave the White House today to come talk to these guys? Because honestly, just exactly what Patty was saying, like talking to the future of the conservative movement is so exciting. I love doing it. It's important. Frankly, if we don't do it, who's going to do it, right? In other words, for those of you who maybe you're still in college, recently out of college, you know that going to talk to your college bureaucrat, career center person, what's that really going to do? He or she doesn't really know anything about political jobs, right? Maybe they're great about financial services jobs, lawyer jobs, maybe healthcare. None of them seem to know anything about political jobs. So I feel like we in the political world have to give back, and do that. So yeah, so it's fascinating to work in the White House. Well worth taking the time out from that this afternoon to come help some folks either growing in the conservative movement, looking to switch into the conservative movement, whatever it is.
Well, we're very thankful to have you. What was your first job in politics, and how did you decide the switch went on one day that said, I want to work in politics?
That's a great question. And by the way, my phone just dinged, reminding me I want to shut the ringer off. So
the president heard that he's
No, that's right. We can shut this ringer off so that we're not disturbed for the next, whatever it is, 45 minutes. Okay, so first job in politics. I guess it's hard to totally identify what exactly that is, but maybe the quick story. So summer of 1992, that's how old I am. That was between my junior and senior year at undergrad, Duke University.
That was back in the 20th century.
Correct, that's right. For those,
who've just heard the
can't
stories.
think that far back. But between junior and senior year, came up here to the American Enterprise Institute, one of the conservative think tanks in town. I had an internship there. And that just sold me on DC. I was interested beforehand, whatever, been a conservative since 7th grade. So the history goes way back. But in terms of knowing, maybe you can work in this. Because maybe some of you agree, but my family, nothing in politics. They didn't know what a political career meant. How do you do it? So I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have
my parents are nurses, retired nurses.
So we just had to kind of
figure it out. They watched the news every night. That was all that I knew.
Yeah, and that's the closest thing. Yeah, for me, it was my parents reading the New York Times. Grew up in the New York area. And yeah, conservative politics was not in the house. My dad at the time was maybe a little bit right of center, a little bit, but not much. Mom, hugely left of center. So I just had to kind of forge my own path. Anyway, so summer of 92, American Enterprise Institute, boom. It just totally sold me. For the record, since we're talking about networking, and we'll obviously get into a lot more of this, I'm still very much in touch with my fellow interns from the summer of 1992. lived with some of them later, was texting some of them as recently as last week.
That's
so.
in 2004 was my first job on a campaign where I was paid to do something, and we did our training at the Leadership Institute's headquarters in Arlington. And all of those people, I'm still in contact with most of them, and Chris Malagisi is one of them.
Just started at Kirby.
How many of you are going to Reagan Palooza tomorrow? Have you heard of the party? It's a big hyped up party. Reagan Palooza, it's gonna be really cool. It's over in Old Town. It is tonight. Sorry, it is tonight. I don't know what day it is. This is CPAC timeline. It's but it is now in its 15th year. And I was at the very first one when it was held in Chris Malagisi's apartment, when it was after the 2004 campaign, and it was CPAC was our first reunion of sorts, and we've all stayed in touch, dozens of us, and that's really what it is. It's like I said, is that you plant the seeds now. The people you're sitting next to is that you may be young, right? You may be inexperienced in the public policy world, but the people that you meet right now, down the line, could end up being your
colleagues,
family,
friends,
right?
Yeah. No question. So I guess that was the first political experience, but it's an unpaid internship. So is that really a first job? Not really. So I guess the first thing where I was getting money for doing something political. So graduated Duke University in 1993. Came here to American University, grad school, poli-sci. Probably not the world's greatest decision I've ever made, and we can talk about that either on stage or privately off stage for those of you thinking about grad school. Wasn't the greatest thing. I realized that pretty soon, so I said, all right, I don't want to necessarily quit what I've started here, so let me start a dual track and do some conservative movement stuff around DC. So the first thing I did was at the College Republican National Committee. At the time, they had a national newspaper. The internet was just starting to be created. It wasn't something you really used for any sort of political or recruiting.
We had Zach Morris phones that you had.
I mean, it was right. So we had to do everything by mailing it to students across the country. And so we had this national newspaper, and I was selling advertising into this national newspaper to fund it so that we could send a newspaper to the college Republican chapters and other materials all across the country. So that was the first kind of step. Got me a great taste of the movement. Got a great taste of controversy also right off the bat, because the RNC, the Republican National Committee, wasn't a huge fan of the CRNC at the time, the College Republican National Committee. They thought we were a little too crazy, a little too conservative, a little too radical. RNC wanted to be a little bit more vanilla, and so there was some tension there. It was interesting.
And then the CRNC broke off from the RNC and became a 527.
Right, exactly.
When your first job, your internship at AEI, and then your first job into politics, what's the best piece of advice that one of your superiors told you starting off the bat in politics?
That's a good question. I guess, and there's definitely lots, but I would say maybe the best thing touches on what we were saying before, stay in touch with people. It's so much easier to do so, by the way, now than when Grandpa Teller here was coming up in politics. So much easier to stay in touch, but don't just assume it happens. You want to invest in people, and you want to stay in touch with their lives, with their careers. Don't just make it how they can help you, but how you can help them as well, because then it's win-win. You'll build and deepen the connection, and it just makes not only for a more fulfilling career, hopefully, but more fulfilling life. You'll have just more friends, more contacts in more places, and you'll be better at whatever jobs you're doing, and it'll make it easier to transition and advance within the jobs that you have.
So it's no secret that you need your foot in the door in order to work in politics. When I was in college, I thought it would be impossible. I was like, those are the smartest people in the world. Newsflash, we're not.
That's right.
There are a lot of dumb people doing really important things. So
we're off the record.
Right? It's not present company excluded. But it's basically people make mistakes. The smartest people make fewer mistakes than others, right? That's the most successful people make fewer mistakes.
Yeah.
But what are the qualities that those entry-level jobs, and I always say to job seekers, I said, you may be waiting for that perfect job, but if you want to move to Washington, D.C., if you want to work in politics, you need to find the job that gets you here, and then you can look for the job that keeps you here.
Great point.
So when you're looking for that job that gets you here, willing to do anything. I mean, it's my first jobs, I would have done anything. I just needed my foot in the door. What are the qualities that you've recognized in entry-level employees that make them advance in their career?
Yeah, no, great point. Passion, driven, someone who's principled, someone who is just a good people person, who you enjoy having a conversation with, you want to talk more to, you want to learn more from, you want to be around them. I mean, it just, maybe it sounds silly and really basic, but just someone you like you have a little connection with, is someone you're more likely to hire or help out, right? Even if you're not in a position to hire, you'll refer their resume, you'll tell your friends about them. You just want to make a connection, but not just be a backslapper and be nice and have a drink and have fun. That's great too, but doing it for principle, for passion, saying, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I want to advance these issues, or I don't even know what issues I want necessarily. I just know I want to help government get smaller and have the individual have more power and more responsibility.
And that's a great point, because I have a lot of job seekers who come in, and some of them know exactly what they want to do. And I go, God bless you, because when I was your age or at this point in my career, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Right? I'll just help other people figure it out. In the meantime.
And also, I think you probably feel this way too. Like when someone does come in and they have their exact path planned out, like for 10, 12, 15 years, I think that's bull crap, personally. I was like,
you don't have a lot of faith in God to ruin your plan.
And not only that, how about elections? I'm like, oh, really? So you know exactly who's going to win control of the House and Senate for the next 6 elections. You know exactly who's going to win the presidency. You know exactly who you're going to meet romantically, by the way, right? A lot of times you think you're going to be in this city and you meet a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they pull you to a different city. So you just don't know. But if you have your principled guardrails, you're like, I don't care where I am. If I'm in LA, if I'm in DC, if I'm on the House, Senate, President, media, all the jobs that were up there before, I know I want to be advancing conservative principles. That's great, and that's attractive when you meet with someone.
It's like if you want to work at the Heritage Foundation, how many of you would love it? You're like, dream job, Heritage, that's amazing, policy. Is that you need to be willing to take out the trash at Heritage. If that's where you want to work, you need to be willing to get your hands dirty and do whatever that job is. Again, it's the job that gets you there, and then focus on how to maneuver in order to stay there and keep you there. I actually see one of my old interns in the audience, Lacey, that she got her first job on the events team at ALEC after her intern program, and she wanted to do policy, but she liked ALEC, she liked the economic issue, and she was like, I'm gonna go work over there, and now she's on the policy team. She started in events and moved over. If you get that first job and prove that you can do it well, do something that you enjoy the organization, the issue, you will advance. It's kind of getting that chip off your shoulder about I'm very qualified and I should have this. Instead, it's
great point.
Have some humility about it.
Right. Yeah. Don't go in with an attitude of hey, I went to a great school and I had this fantastic role in a campaign. Everyone should want me. I'm awesome. Right. If you have that, even if it's in your head, don't let it show on your face or in your words. Have that sense of humility.
And that brings me to, so you mentioned campaigns, and I talked about how I worked on a campaign, and you obviously spent a very long time on the Hill, and now you're in the administration, and you intern at AEI, and so you're very familiar with, and you work with all the conservative entities. What do you see the biggest differences are in the types of employees that each entity is looking for? What are the standout qualities for the Hill, for private sector, whatever it may be?
Honestly, what's funny? Kind of the same, because they're all political jobs, right? They're all conservative movement jobs. In my case, folks who are hiring on the Hill would love someone who's a people person, but also someone who could write, also someone who has at least some sort of ideological vision, right? The worst thing you could say, I always feel like, is I'll work for anybody doing anything. I'm not saying you shouldn't get your hands dirty. Yes, right. I totally agree with that. But like what you said, I want to work for the Heritage Foundation doing anything. That's different. But I've seen people go, I'll work for Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. I just want to get in the door. Don't do that. That turns, I think, most people
You have to have
have some sort of
principles.
Yeah. And even if you're still developing them, that's okay. Then just say, look, to be honest, I'm still exploring certain ideas, whatever, but I just know that I'm on the conservative side. Or no, I'm a little bit off. Maybe I'm a 6.5 out of 10 type of Republican.
Or a libertarian or whatever it may be.
Right, yeah, exactly. But have some direction, some guardrails there, that kind of thing.
That's, so we've talked about all the positive qualities. what's something that you have seen be the biggest detriment to someone's career, that it's a habit that they should break now if they do it? I'll say mine.
Okay. Sure.
Mine is if you only bring up problems and you never propose a solution to that problem, if you're just alerting to them of what's wrong, that is going to be detrimental to you for your entire career, because you're just going to be the bearer of bad news instead of a problem solver. So whenever there is a problem, and things go wrong, remember, it's the most successful people just make the fewest number of mistakes. It's propose a solution to whatever it is. Your boss might say, that's a terrible idea. You are the dumbest person I have ever met in my life, right? They're not gonna say that, but it gives you a chance to show that you're a problem solver and you're thinking about how to make things good and right and correct. So, and I'll let Paul say what he thinks is.
That's a good point. That's a really good one. Yeah, one I was thinking is, and this especially applies to when you're networking to get a job, but certainly once you're in a job and you're continuing your networking, the kind of person who's only in touch when they need something. That's not necessarily a recipe for success, right? You don't want to be known as the person who's like, people only hear from you when you need something from them, right? Maybe the first time you give that person something, maybe the second time, sure, let me get you this. By that third time or more, you're just like, okay, this person, they just want to take. They don't want to give, they don't want to work together, they don't want to collaborate, they don't want to help me out, maybe I need something. So yeah, I'll always look at how, turn the arrow outward. Right? How can I be a servant leader? How can I serve other people? How can I help other people? And at times when I need something, then I've now built up enough trust, enough capital that I can ask friends and colleagues, hey, can you help me? When I did get fired from the RSC, I had built up enough outward arrows that I was able to go like, okay, guys, need your help. Need some advice, need some connections, that kind of thing. And you could ask that with a straight face. Whereas if you're only asking, gimme all the time, no one's really going to help you in the long term.
If you ask someone for a favor, once they do that for you, they help you out, say, thank you so much. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Yep.
That's it. Just a simple way to close that deal as well. I like thinking about what my life would be like had I not been interested in politics and what I would want to do. And my dream job would be to be on Saturday Night Live as one of the, cast members. It would be so fun. If you didn't work in politics, what do you think you would be doing?
I'm one to say that I have no talent and skills outside of politics. In fact, I always joke that once I leave the Beltway, I also have no skills or talents. But what I'd be doing, honestly, it's hard to imagine, because for me, it's like I said, since 7th grade, I've been a conservative. I've had this political path. I've done nothing else. So let me politely dodge that one, because I honestly have
I get it.
no good answer. So how about you? Other than Saturday night, what would you do in this town?
Oh, in here, I'd probably be a teacher.
Okay.
Specifically a history teacher, because I've always been fascinated with American history.
Cool.
And,
all right.
And I've always wanted to create a coursework around the song We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, and where you have to actually research everything within the song.
That's all.
Billy Joel was my first concert when I was a kid. It was that specific.
But that's not one of his better songs.
No, but when you're in the 3rd grade, it is the song.
I gotcha. And it's the most historically oriented
right.
one.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh. Me with my Reader's Digest books that my parents would buy me. It's like, nerd alert. I'm not wearing my glasses today.
That's right. We
want to open up for questions that if you have for Paul or myself, specifically about how do I get that job? So are there any audience questions?
And real quick, before you even go to the first question, just a very short story, which I think is very relevant. So again, I love doing these kinds of things. I did one at Duke University once. I always try to stay back in touch with Duke and whatever. Did one of these, talked to folks. Some people came up to me afterwards. One guy in particular was just asking me lots of questions about politics. I didn't think I can go into politics. How do we do it? He heard my story. He was excited by my energy. That wow, it's great to work on Capitol Hill. That, stuff like that. And then flash forward a few years, that guy is now a senior White House advisor. His name is Stephen Miller. Oh. So I want to take some credit for inspiring Stephen Miller to come, because he's a Duke alum. And I had actually followed him because he would write these rabidly conservative op-eds in the Duke student newspaper, which I was like so thirsty for when I was a student. So as an alum looking back, I was like, wow, that's great. And he didn't think he could know how to do a political career. The only reason I bring that up is to say there could be the next Stephen Miller in this room. So
Or the next Paul Teller.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, don't underestimate the importance of like learning some of the skills here, asking some questions, which we'll get to in 30 seconds, sorry, and then staying in touch, because Stephen and I did communicate thereafter, and now he's, walking into the Oval Office whenever he feels like it. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty sweet. But anyway, sorry about that.
So my question is, what is your advice for students who are getting internships on the Hill or in Senate offices and going to work in those offices? What is your advice for them to, actually do a good job and how to build connections on the Hill? So in future, if they want to get a job there, what's the best, pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, frankly, the fact you're even asking that question, you're like 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
Meaning like so many people will get an internship and feel like, oh, I just have to do the internship. Don't leave the office. Don't do anything else. Like the fact that you're asking that question shows you know exactly the answer to the question, which is make sure you're constantly meeting people in other offices. You're like, how do I do that? Well, great. The beauty of being a young person on the Hill, there's just constantly events on the Hill, happy hours off the Hill, Heritage Leadership Institute, AEI, all these places have constant training sessions, just even policy sessions, social things. Go to all those. Take people's cards, meet folks. And here's the key, and this is where not everyone does the greatest of jobs, follow up. Like, stay in touch. Don't just meet folks, take their cards, throw them in a shoebox, never do anything with them. Like, stay in touch with folks. Build real relationships. Within your office itself, when you have an internship, make sure you're always adding value. You're not just kind of being the annoying intern who's, breaking the copier.
So I was an intern on the Hill when I was in college, and the best piece of advice I can give to any intern, if you want to develop relationships with people on staff who are decision makers or whatnot, get a little bowl and have it filled with candy at all times. It's people will come by your desk and grab a piece of candy,
really good
and they
advice.
will start to interact with you. And you may be the candy girl, it's oh, I gotta go get the candy and go talk to, what's your first name? Tammin. I'm with Tammin right now. I'm talking to Tammin, right? That'll be what it is, because they're coming over and picking up a piece of candy.
That's actually really good advice.
That's what I did when I was on the Hill. I go, they're not talking to me. They're all in their policy room. The ledge staff is in there. The only way to get them to come out is, and then they started giving me money to go get more candy. So I did
great.
the initial investment, and then everybody else started paying for it. So it was perfect. But it's just those small things. It's stand out somehow, stand out in a good way.
That's right. And then obviously, look, offer to stay a little bit late. Like if your internship ends at 5 p.m. every day, when it's 5 p.m., before you walk out, ask people, hey, you doing okay? Can I help you with something before I head out? Or, hey, I noticed you were crunching on that press release. You want me to do a quick draft for you? Like, even if they say no, the fact that you're offering is great. And believe me, they're not going to say no too many times, right? So much stuff to do, they will start saying, yeah, actually, would you mind doing this? Would you mind getting that? Like, great, come along to this. Feel free to, push the envelope a little bit, right? Don't be crazy, but like a little bit, hey, can I join you for this meeting? Or just be that person who helps out, who's value add, who is giving, servant leadership, not always just like taking.
My husband works on the Hill currently. He's an LD for a very conservative member, and he tells me about his interns all the time when he comes home. He goes, he brags about them. And he says, oh, this intern did this, and it was so helpful. And be the person that staff brag about. That they say, we have the best intern. And then, because they might not have a job opening in that office, but they're gonna ask their friends in other offices, hey, our intern's amazing. Do you guys have a staff assistant opening? Do you have a press assistant opening? Whatever it may be, they're gonna start pushing you and selling you out there.
Which is a point we should emphasize too, like 99% of Hill jobs are filled from just people talking to each other on the Hill. They don't put classified ads in the back of the Washington Post. They just talk to their buddies around the Hill. So you want to be in those conversations because people know you and you've stood out.
Yeah, if the Hill job is being advertised, it's already filled. That's essentially, they already have an idea of what they want.
Or they haven't found the right person
yeah.
with their conversation.
Right.
But they always start with the conversations. They always ask your friends first, your colleagues first. That doesn't work out, then maybe you need to do a public listing, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Well, thank you both for coming first off. My question is,
I live here now, that's.
My question is, what advice would you give a young person like me studying international politics and political economy, somebody who wants to eventually work in the White House dealing with foreign policy? Is there any advice you could give?
I'll take it.
You want me to take that? Let's see. I guess when, and this probably applies to both of us, when we're looking at resumes, and I've been in a lot of positions where I'm looking at resumes, I'm hiring, or I'm helping other folks hire, you look for consistency throughout. You look for a thread. When you see resumes that things are all over the place, it's okay, like maybe the first one or two things could be a little bit unrelated. If you're young, you're figuring something out. But at some point, you want to see some sort of thread. So the reason I bring that up is think of things you can do that one day in your future resume will tell a story, will tell an international relations story, whether that be, you did an internship at
IRI.
Yeah, right, some international think tank, exactly. Maybe you were on the Hill for, the Foreign Affairs Committee, Senate Foreign Relations Committee, that kind of thing. Maybe, frankly, you were even on a campaign for somebody who was emphasizing foreign affairs issues, whatever. Something where you could, show that thread, I think is the most likely type of resume that someone, let's say the National Security Council in the White House will one day look and be like, wow, okay, this person has really done a lot in national security. He, maybe media related, maybe think tank related, on the Hill, like different iterations of the foreign policy political world. It makes for a richer, more well-rounded resume, but yet still within international relations, and I think that'll get most noted in the White House.
Talking about resumes and how it needs to tell a story, how many of you have LinkedIn accounts? How many of them are up to date? All right, make sure that they're up to date, have a nice professional headshot. Again, Leadership Institute is doing free headshots with a resume consultation in the mezzanine rooms to prepare everyone for the job fair that starts at 4 today. Plug, healthy plug. But LinkedIn, it's start researching people who have the job that you want, right? It's, if Paul's job seems incredible, look him up on LinkedIn and look at his job history. Look at people's job histories to see where they have worked, the different jobs that they have done, and perhaps see that might be part of your path. And it also gives you an idea of the different types of jobs that are out there, where it's, you're not gonna be that person writing policy at the White House right now, but find out who that person is and go see what their work history is. What was their career path that brought them to that spot? That's what I use LinkedIn for a lot, is that I do the research about what people have done, how they got to be where they are right now, and I learn their career path so I can give the advice to the job seekers and say, these are 3 different ways that people have gotten to this specific job. So I just want you to know what your options are.
By the way, since you mentioned LinkedIn, I can't help but take this opportunity to say, if you haven't done so already, please clean up your social media. I'm like begging you. And I'm especially thinking of like maybe some of the guys in the room whose other guy buddies tag them in that really fun photo of how you dressed up as a condom for Halloween or something like that, right? It's hilarious, but I'm guaranteeing you some future employer is gonna find it. Come up on Google Images, you think, oh no, it's way down my Facebook feed. No, it's on Instagram like 2 years ago. They're gonna find it, it comes out.
It's also
please
things
clean
that
it up.
you've liked, that you yourself have actually reacted on. So be really careful, because sometimes you accidentally push like button and you don't even realize it and you go, oh my gosh, this is so stupid.
Yeah, so be careful with that. Folks do find those things.
It's you and then you, yeah.
I wanted to circle back to the comments you made about graduate school. How important is it to have a graduate degree if you want to work on the Hill or in the White House or even in like a think tank?
It definitely depends on the exact path you're thinking. Like, for example, if someone says, hey, I would love to be a lawyer or a counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee one day. Yeah, having a law degree is definitely gonna help with that. But if you're just like, hey, I'm just a conservative activist, I'm kind of a Turning Point USA, Tea Party type person, I just wanna help in any number of issues, be kind of a conservative generalist and just kick butt, forget the grad degree. It's not gonna help. What is gonna help is starting earlier. I wish someone, frankly, I wish I had been in those seats and someone up here in a white chair had said to me, hey, Teller, get to the Hill earlier.
Right.
Because I didn't even try to go to the Hill until I was, how old was I? I was almost 29 years old.
Ancient.
Ancient. Which, believe it or not, for the Hill, for your first Hill job, some people look at you like, oh, 29, almost 29, huh? Okay, well, let's see what we can do. Because the reason it was tough was because I was too old to kind of start like as an entry level, because at the time I had this poli-sci PhD, some experience around the conservative movement, a little bit older. So I felt weird to like, be a staff assistant at the front desk. On the other hand, I couldn't even find the men's room around the Capitol Hill, or on Capitol Hill, so they can't start you in some senior position either. So I was in this weird no man's land, which I overcame through networking.
My husband's first job on the Hill at 36. And
it's hard, right?
Very difficult. So he worked in the Wisconsin State Legislature for 10 years, then moved here, was an NRA lobbyist, and then he's like, I just want to go to the Hill. I am a public servant at heart. That's what I want to do. And he would apply to any job opening that he saw. He goes, I just need to get my foot in the door. It was his attitude. I said, I agree with you. If you didn't have as much experience as you do on your resume, there's like a red flag when someone with this type of experience applies for a very entry-level position. He did it through networking.
Yeah.
It was a resume got in the hands of so-and-so. Someone actually came up to me and said, I'm helping staff this office, give me some resumes. And I said, well, what are the positions? And they said the ones, and I go, well, I have your LD. It just happens to be my fiance, right? It was when I got, and so, but he did the work to get the job. So it is, when you transition over to the Hill, it is difficult to do so, and to do it to get the position that is suited for you and whatnot. So if you do want to do the ledge route, you should go and try and get in early.
Yeah.
And to not waste that time. And doing an internship is a great way to find out if you want to work on the Hill. I did the internship when I was in college, and I decided that I never wanted to work anywhere near Capitol Hill or do anything with policy whatsoever. That I love the conservative movement. The conservative movement is my home, but I never want to do anything with policy. So I had to figure out, well, what is that job that I can do that isn't policy? And it turns out that the job is to help other people find jobs, right?
Well, that's right. And let me also clarify.
You do all the things that I don't want to do.
I don't want to imply that like all grad school is always bad for everybody. No. Like I said, sometimes it's very needed. Also, if your path is like, I want to one day be an academic researcher at the Heritage Foundation or something like, then having an academic degree is going to not only help, but probably be necessary.
The best
but if you want to just be an activist,
that pay
just go
for
right in.
it for you. Best grad school is free grad school. If you can go to for free, go to grad school. That is, if you can go to law school for free, go to law school, whatever it may be. And then you had a question? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you very much for this Q&A. This is very helpful.
Absolutely.
My question was related to hers. I was curious as to, I think Paul mentioned that when he went to American to grad school, he realized that it wasn't for him. So I was just curious why he thought that.
Yeah, because you know what it was? So I was poli-sci undergrad at Duke, and then I said, well, God, I guess I don't feel done with school. Let's try grad school. I like politics, political science, but let's try poli-sci grad school. I mean, that's almost the extent of the thought that went into it. It was very little research and thinking, not realizing that poli-sci undergrad, way different than poli-sci grad school. Grad school, they're like trying to narrow your brain. There's a lot more quantitative stuff, statistics, Today it's like so much
It's actually
computer programming even. It's like, and I'm like, this is not what I thought. So also here we were at American University, Washington, D.C., a few miles from, the seat of our government. And I remember even suggesting, why don't we just have some kind of field trips, for lack of a better term, down to the Hill, down to the White House. They laughed at me. They're like, well, that's an undergrad thing. We don't do that in grad school. And I'm thinking, that really just flipped the switch for me. Like, yeah, right. So in grad school, we're going to do theory, and we're going to read books written by authors who've never worked in government, even though we have government right down the street. So I'm like, you know what? All right, this isn't really for me. I'll start this kind of public service.
Yeah, when people say if you want to get into politics, be a poli-sci major, or they make it required to have a political science degree, it is one of the worst pieces of advice I was ever given. It's you want to go into politics and study political science. I say that I never use my degree. I use my communications classes that I took, my liberal arts classes, just the general education requirements, because those things taught me how to think and think critically and think in a way that makes me analyze things differently. Poli-sci is completely its own
thing.
animal. So if you want to get your master's degree, get it in an issue that that you'll use. So if you want to get into healthcare, do a hard science, like figure these things out so you're going to be studying the things that you're going to write policy for. Yes, last question. And then we'll type questions out in the hall if
Yeah,
anybody wants
I could stay. We'll stay around.
Paul, do you think that your PhD hurt you?
It's a great question. The PhD hurt me. You know what? I would say when I was looking for the first Hill job, yes. The reason I'll say that is, so again, I just got the PhD, went right to the Hill. So my resume was the top, Paul S. Teller, comma, PhD. First thing, education, poli-sci, PhD. So I was kind of shoving it in people's face. That was a detriment. In fact, finally, some people who were friends basically said, yeah, I love you. I know you just did all this great academic work. You're killing yourself by advertising this PhD.
It's because no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's a great way, yeah.
Okay, so it would have been better to leave it off.
Yeah, so what I wound up doing is I redid the resume, made my name just Paul S. Teller, no PhD on there, and moved education to the bottom because I realized the stuff that should be at the top are the politically oriented things, the things that College Republican National Committee. I was also at the Washington Times for a while doing political advertising. I was at this place called National Center for Public Policy Research, small activist think tank in town. That stuff went at the top.
Okay, so you adjust.
And education at the bottom for the Hill. Yeah, yeah. So
And there's a lot of, the last comment that we'll make, a lot of younger, how many of you are currently college students? All right.
awesome.
How do they apply for an internship at the White House?
That's the thing. The deadlines are so far
Right.
in advance, right? Like in other words, you're thinking, wait, it's February. I should think about my summer. The summer deadline, the summer internship deadline already passed. It was like January or something. I shouldn't say it's February. It's March
Right,
now, March
yeah.
1st. So very soon they're going to open up the applications for the White House fall internships, and they're just on the White House website. I can get it to you. You
Yep.
can get it out or whatever.
Really
but
early.
it's
That's
public.
what it is. It's a work, and work hard early in advance.
Yeah.
And then you'll make fewer mistakes if you give yourself time. So Paul, thank you so much. for
Appreciate it.
being
So
here.
fun. Great to see you guys. Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll stay around.
Sweet.